The Trump administration is considering strict new measures for foreigners who want to enter the U.S. as part of the, quote, extreme vetting the president has promised. WSJ reporter Laura Meckler joins us from our Washington bureau with details. Hi, Laura. Some of these proposed measures include divulging mobile phone contacts, social media passwords, even financial records, along with probing questions about ideology. What is the justification for this broad new set of requirements?
So these are still under consideration, so they're not requirements yet. But the justification is essentially to do everything that we can to really know who's coming into the country. So in other words, the idea, the thinking behind it is that our vetting today is too loose. It's too presumptuous that people are probably okay unless there's a red flag. And so they want to dig more deeply. Now, it's not clear whether they would be digging this deeply into every single applicant, but the idea is that they would have the right to do it and they would be asking people for all of this information.
What is one of the biggest changes here? It seems that submitting your smartphone to such an extreme examination is rather new.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the part that really catches people off guard. I mean, I had a senior official at the Department of Homeland Security talk to me about how you can learn a lot from somebody by looking at their phone. And indeed you can. I think that's what sort of concerns people. I mean, I don't even want my kids to hold my phone for too long. So, you know, the idea that you just kind of hand it over to a stranger, obviously that's a joke. But, right. You know, it is very intrusive. And now, again, the Trump administration officials, their argument is, you know, you don't have a right to come to the United States. If you want to come here, you're going to submit to our rules. But that is extremely probing, not just looking at potentially your contacts, but are they also going to be looking at your photos? Are they looking at your emails? I mean, is there any limit?
Right, and of course, bad guys could then just get rid of their phones. But let's talk about who this vetting plan might apply to, because as you said, it's not clear. Would it also apply to citizens of some U.S. allies like France and Germany, for instance?
Right. So that is another sort of surprising factor in this whole thing, is that they haven't ruled out applying this to any country. Now, there are 38 countries in the world that currently you don't need a visa to come to the U.S. And that's because those countries do a lot of information sharing with us about people that are on their terrorism watch lists, about their people with criminal backgrounds, and they have good passports. So we really trust them. But when I asked, could this potentially apply even to those countries, the answer was yes. So we're talking about you know, a wide range from very friendly countries, and then of course on the other end of the spectrum you have places like, you know, Iran, Somalia, Libya. Now, these are places that under the Trump administration, if they can, they would like to potentially ban from coming to the U.S. altogether.
Right.
If this executive order is allowed to go through from the courts.
And we should point out that while the executive order previously banning travel from 6 majority Muslim countries was put on hold by a federal judge, the plan to enhance vetting procedures was not affected, and the State Department has already taken some small steps toward tighter vetting, isn't that right?
Right. Yes, so the State Department, yes, has taken some small steps. They cabled their embassies and consulates and said, you know, you need to be really on the lookout. You need to spend more time interviewing people. You need to identify groups of people who might be subject to a greater security vet. So not everybody who's applying for a visa. Some people who have very straightforward applications and that don't present any red flags are just sort of given a visa through a very simple process today. They run their name against our terrorism watch list. They check the passport out to make sure it hasn't been lost or stolen. They do an interview, sometimes a very quick interview, and everything is fine. Other people are flagged for further security reviews. So the State Department has suggested maybe we want to put more people through the security reviews. They also, the State Department went ahead and asked its consulates and embassies to start asking people more questions. Now, they weren't the kind of questions that we were reporting about today. They're more like history of your addresses, former email addresses, where are all places that you've lived, just more detailed background. Now, the State Department did sort of voluntarily put that on hold, saying that they were going to wait out of an abundance of caution given the lawsuit that is pending against this over overall executive order.
Sure.
So, but yes, the State Department has already tipped its hand of sort of where it's starting to head.
Now, Laura, is it likely that if these stricter entry procedures are applied also to countries who are friendly to the U.S., to those citizens, is it likely that they will then turn around and do the same to our citizens?
Well, I think that's one of the questions that a lot of experts have, is that they fear that that's exactly what will happen, is that there will be this sort of reciprocal vetting. And obviously a lot of Americans would not be happy with that. So this is a balance. I mean, immigration policy, visa policy is part of our foreign policy. So I did have somebody at the Homeland Security Department tell me at one point that, you know, if they run into these kinds of problems as they're tightening up all these procedures, that'll be for the State Department to handle. They can go and, you know, make nice with these countries, but, you know, that may be easier said than done.
Right. Sure, likely the tourism will take a cut. Either way. All right, Laura Meckler, thank you so much for all of that.
Thanks for having me.